Sacha, I'm proud of your friend Bradley Wright-Phillips because there was a nuance to his answer.
It's a brilliant player.
Bradley, that's weak. That's weak. Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's up, everybody? We've got a packed show for you today, and this is MLS as we get you all set for Matchday 5. And the three guys joining me to get you set, Taylor Twellman, Sacha Kljestan, and Bradley Wright-Phillips. Bradley, happy belated birthday. What'd you get, a work-from-home pass today for that?
I did. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Only you wish me happy birthday. The rest of you guys can go to hell.
I texted you yesterday. You liar. Didn't even respond to me.
Didn't see it.
I was rearranging my sock drawer, Bradley. Sorry about that.
Well, Bradley, happy birthday from here, but you owe me, my friend. You better be coming in next time.
Wow.
I gotta say, though, this was the cutest post of them all from your brother, Sean. And look at that face, Brad. You haven't changed a bit.
Wait, which one's Brad? Which one's Bradley?
Hey, Sean hasn't grown an inch. Sean's the same size.
Thank you, Sean Wright-Phillips, for that little action. Let's start off this show with some first impressions. It's been 21 days since the MLS season began. Sacha, we'll start with you. Who's flying under the radar the most? Which player?
Ooh, it's a good question, Jill. I think I got to go with Dejan Joveljic from the LA Galaxy, the starting number 9, the replacement for Chicharito. 3 goals in 3 games. He's benefiting from some beautiful play from Ricky Puig, Joseph Pancil. Yes, he scored 3 tap-ins, but that's what center forwards do. He's putting himself in position to score goals. A goal in every game so far. He's doing great things in LA, and Galaxy are benefiting.
And now the marquee matchup this weekend, Atlanta United taking on Orlando City. Why can Atlanta United be the best home team in MLS this year?
Because it's 67,000. Because time and time again, I think all of us have taken it for granted, namely myself, because I've been there for so many of these big moments. But when you're playing in front of that energy, that crowd, in that kind of environment, it can take you further. Now, make no mistake about it. The Revolution were the better team in the first 44 minutes. But then they get a penalty, and then the floodgates open, and Giakoumakis leaves with a hat trick. But I want to remind our viewers, it's been a long time since Atlanta United has been the dominant home team in Major League Soccer. So long ago that Frank de Boer in 2019 was the last time they finished in the top 2 of the Eastern Conference with the best home field advantage record. And that's the point, whether it's 21, 22, 23, they haven't done it. And so this conversation, Sacha, about they're as good of a roster as 2018, 2019. I don't think it matters if they don't make sure that they are dominant at home the way FC Cincinnati was last year. If Brad Guzan and the group are correct, and they are the best team in the Eastern Conference at home, then we're talking about a supporter shield campaign. Then we're talking about a real opportunity to do so because they're awful on the road. If they're good at home, they were the way they were in 2019, Sacha, they can win the Shield then.
I love it. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Taylor, but it's the way that they've played at home. It's the way that they're dominating possession, but also trying to suck teams out. This goal, this is the 3rd goal of the game. Look at how much pressure Derek Williams is under pressure here. 4 players eliminated, 1 pass, 2 players eliminated, and this is what Gonzalo Pineda wants. He wants Thiago Almada with the ball, with time and space to drive at the defense. There's nobody better in the league with the ball at their foot. And it ends up with the perfect cross, Giakoumakis at the back post. If Atlanta United can continue to do this, to suck teams in order to play on the break with Jean De Silva and Saba and Giakoumakis finishing off plays, they're in tune for a lot. And Orlando will have to be careful not to get sucked out in this game.
It's going to be tough because Orlando City is looking for their first league win of the season, knocked out of CONCACAF Champions Cup midweek. Bradley, how do you fix Orlando City?
Oh, you're asking me the tough ones. Listen, we got to look at what made. Thank you. Yeah, what made Orlando good last season? It was their home form. They were very organized. Whenever you scored against that Orlando, you had to earn it. They didn't make many mistakes. This season, when I've seen them start, it's a slow start. They're not playing any good soccer. They're not dangerous in the final third. So for them to get back to winning ways, they need the double pivot of Cartagena, Araujo in the midfield. They've been brilliant. They've only played together twice. So they need good starts, that combination in the middle, and then rely on Muriel and Maguire to get some goals.
The balance is off. Make no mistake about it. I was there for one of the, if not the worst performance in the last 4 or 5 years under Oscar Pereira against Inter Miami. The balance is off. You've got Ojeda, dropping deep into the midfield. There's no real shape. They're pressing. They're not creating a ton of chances. They're at their best when their wide players are dominant in their setup, when they create chances for their 9, whether it's Maguire or Muriel. The fact is, they don't look like the same team. And if Galese is going to be the goalkeeper that we saw against Tigres, then they're in for a long run, because right now he's making mistakes that he traditionally doesn't make. But right now, tactically, they are a mess. They are unbalanced. Oscar Pereira shockingly has his work cut out for him, because his hands right now are tied a little bit because they're not creating enough chances in the final third.
I have to point out, too, with this one, Atlanta taking on Orlando, it's one of the biggest rivalries in MLS, yet it doesn't have a name, which is always surprising to me. People have thrown out their Southern Skirmish, Georgia-Florida feud, I-75 Derby, Kings of the South Derby. But this one stood out to me the most. Should we just call it Father's Day, perhaps? Going back to the days of Joseph Martinez, Atlanta United, simply dominating Orlando City. Now, since 2020, like Taylor pointed out, Orlando City has had the edge, 1 win more than Atlanta United in this one. Are you guys surprised in a rivalry like this? You know, there's no name. Does a good rivalry need a name?
No.
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 Just the play on the field is what matters.
Father's Day?
Exactly. Just let him.
All
no,
right.
if we
You don't have to come up with a fancy name, but just call it the Florida Derby, something. But you can't just be like that game, Atlanta or Orlando. It can't be that. It has to have a ring, a name to it. All of the biggest derbies around the world have names.
Name it, Bradley.
Go ahead, Bradley.
Right
Name it.
now.
We'll stick with Father's Day.
Joseph Martinez.
That's weak.
Will like that. Out in the West, leading this young season so far is Portland and Minnesota, but just behind them in third place is the LA Galaxy. Brad, heading into match day 5 in the West, where do the LA Galaxy rank for you?
Well, the league doesn't lie, so they're third, right? So if I'm being boring. But on the eye, for me, they're a way better team than Portland, St. Louis. They've been more exciting. They've got the bigger upside. We see what they're doing already with just paint seal. When they add Peck to this attacking, to this attack, I see them being even better. Ricky Puig isn't just playing by himself anymore. He has options. He has width, and they've looked dangerous. They look like the best team for me in the West, out of the big dogs.
I gotta say, I agree with you, Bradley. I'm changing my tune with the Galaxy. I'm reacting to what I'm seeing over the first 3 weeks, and the Galaxy have been fantastic. My only worry is some defensive mistakes.
Yeah.
They've made against Nashville. They should have taken the lead early in that game. They gave up some soft goals, but they showed a real good mentality to get themselves right back in the game. Obviously, Joveljic with the goals, but Puig has been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Paintsil has been fantastic. This team is very dangerous. Mark Delgado, also under the radar player who never seems to get the credit he's due, but is game in and game out, covering the most ground, helping out in the midfield, making defensive plays, making runs off the ball. They're looking very good to start the season.
Even with the LA Galaxy at 5 points is St. Louis City, their opponent this weekend. And St. Louis City is off to another good start this season. Sacha, has St. Louis done enough to take another step this season?
I like what they did in the offseason. They said, we had a good team. We had a good first season. We've got a great core group of players, and they stuck with those players. Yes, they sold Giacchini to Como in Italy and didn't really replace him, so maybe they could use one more striker as a depth piece, but I like this team. I like the way that they play. They have an identity. They're not afraid to be who they are. AZ Jackson, I think, is stepping up week in and week out, becoming a more important player. Celio Pompeu as well. So I still like this team a lot in the West.
Sacha, you bring up a good point, right? Because they needed to, I would say, progress at the fullback position. They went out and did that with those two. But I made a real point at the end of the year when they really lost and fell flat against Sporting Kansas City in the playoffs, having lost 4 straight to end their season, is they've got to have a plan B. And what is the plan B? And right now, is Adeniran and Klaus the best way to go about it? We've seen last game, Klaus coming off the bench. Can they both play at the same position? They've got to find a way when plan A is not working, which is high press, turn them over, create chances through their tactical setup. Do they have a plan B? In my opinion, Edwin Leuven is a special player. He doesn't necessarily fit in this system under Bradley Cardinell. What is plan B? I think you hit the nail on the head. Joe Aquini's not around. Can you add another attacking piece? I think they've got to find that, because when plan A doesn't work, they still look unsure of themselves. And I think in the bigger games, in the bigger moments, that's going to rear its head, and I'm not sure they found that answer yet.
Taylor, I think the plan B is now maybe more of a 4-2-3-1 that we've seen, with Jackson playing more underneath one striker instead of two strikers, a little bit more possession in the midfield. This is something that I think from afar, what I'm seeing is Bradley Carnell is trying to get this team to evolve a little bit, that in the bigger games, they have a little bit more possession that have to break down teams. Maybe it's not perfect yet, but maybe over the course of a season, that's where they're heading.
I think you and I could have a real good debate whether or not Jackson is better through the middle or in wide areas. And I think that's where this becomes interesting. But for me, as you know, Bradley knows, Edwin Leuven is a little different. And when he gets many touches, as we saw at the beginning of last year, he's a guy that can give you 10-plus assists. I haven't seen that guy since July 15th of last year. They've got to find a way to get him going again.
And Taylor, brilliant point, because this is what it is with St. Louis at the moment, what I'm seeing. And yes, they started okay, but it's the plan B, like you say, but also the respect now. They're dealing with everyone, they got a target on their back.
Yep.
We all know they're a good team. We all know what they do now. So when they're going into places, there's no more surprises. How do they counter that? How do they still get wins and victories? That's the biggest question I have for St. Louis.
One team that needs a plan B is Inter Miami, of what they do when they do not have Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi. And the league got a taste of what Inter Miami looks like over the weekend. 3-2 loss to Montreal. No Messi, no Suarez. Of course, there was Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets. Sasha, if you are Tata Martino and you know you have the schedule ahead that Inter Miami does, plus Copa America, what is the best way to manage this Miami squad?
Well, Jill, I think it's the best way to manage any squad in Major League Soccer who has lots of competitions to play in, and that's got to be some rotation. But when there is rotation, the coaches want to see their team play the same way. Yes, it's impossible to play the same way when you don't have Messi on the field, but that still means that other players have to step up. Diego Gomez, we saw him in Olympic qualifying in South America be one of the best players in all of Olympic qualifying. I need to see more out of him on a week in and week out basis, especially when Messi is not playing. That means joining the attack, making more runs, taking more of the ball, scoring goals, getting assists. Gressel also has to step up. Redondo has to become a big player in this team. Even Julian Gressel has to step up and make more plays when other older players are out of the lineup.
It's interesting, Sacha, how you said rotate the squad. And over the past weekend, he rotated almost everybody, right? So like he takes Gomez out along with Suarez and Messi, when I'd argue, well, if you're taking Messi out and Suarez, I'd actually play Gomez. That's where the rotation comes in. Because listen, I don't care what anyone tries to tell me. Farias and Kremaski, those injuries are killing this team. They're young, they're dynamic, they've got legs, they can push forward. Missing those two players is killing the rotation. But whether Messi or Suarez plays, they can't defend set pieces. I don't care what anyone watching this tells me. I've now seen them give up 19 goals off of set pieces, 11 off of corners. Whether Messi or Suarez are playing, you've got to figure that out, and they give up a ton of chances. And that's a real issue for this team. Montreal in the first 30 minutes played them off the field. And then Robert Taylor got going, and then Alba said, you know what? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to put on Messi's cape. I'm going to come out. I'm going to score one of the best goals you'll ever see and try to get this team over the line. But I still think Miami's got issues, Bradley. They give up a ton of chances, and for whatever reason, they cannot defend when the ball's in wide areas, whether it's a set piece or a cross. They look very vulnerable in those spots.
I mean, you mentioned it briefly. This goal from Alba, the way that he played late in the game, Alba might even be one of the most important players on this team. Just the way he can bring the ball forward from left back, but also the way late in that game, he's popping up on the right side. He's almost playing like a midfielder to join the attack. That assist from Busquets is crazy. He never even looks that way, but it's a perfect little ball to Alba and a beautiful finish. Obviously, Alba is one of those older players who might have to be rotated as well, but when he's on the field, he's one of the best still.
Miami will be going up against DC United in a nice little story coming out of their 0-0 draw to FC Cincinnati this weekend. Steve Goff of the Washington Post reporting that Christian Benteke, who's been out now 2 games with a hamstring injury, did not travel with the team officially, but made his way to FC Cincinnati. Taylor was sitting on the bus when the guys got in there. What does that tell you about the vibes at DC United under Troy Lesesne?
There's buy-in. There's buy-in. Listen, I was the first one to raise my hand and felt like Troy Lesesne was a square peg, round hole kind of higher. Yet I know Troy Lesesne, he's really put a lot of work into his craft. I thought he did a very good job with the circumstances at New York Red Bulls last year. But this is a team at DC United, Sacha and Bradley, where the one thing they did not have under Wayne Rooney and Losada, which is mind-boggling to me, is buy-in, is commitment, is the willingness to put yourself on the line. In the first 3 games this year, it's 180 degrees different than what I saw in the previous 2 years under those managers. So at least you get that. But here's the thing. When Inter Miami and Messi show up, for whatever reason, that home team has a different crowd to deal with, a different level of expectation, and you've got to be perfect for 90 minutes. Not 82, not 83, the way Nashville was in CONCACAF Champions Cup, the way FC Dallas was in Leagues Cup last year, LA Galaxy in their home opener this year against Inter Miami. You've got to be perfect for 90 minutes. That's going to be the biggest obstacle for Troy Lesesne and DC United. Yes, midweek, CONCACAF Champions Cup, heavy legs for Inter Miami, but it doesn't matter. You have to be perfect for 90-plus minutes, and I think the jury's out whether or not they're going to be able to do so.
Yeah, Taylor, the one thing that surprised me is Troy Lesesne implementing that high press with DC United. When you look at the focal point of that, Christian Benteke, you're like, he's not going to run. He's not going to press. I know he got injured, but the first game they played with real intensity. I'll give Troy this, which we cannot deny. He's short time at Red Bull. He came in, implemented his style on the team. They got wins. They made a playoff push. He goes into DC. Immediately, we see an automatic change in this team. High pressing, playing good football. They get clear service to Benteke. Again, it's only one game, but there's a clear idea. He's very good at making the players understand what he wants and how to win games.
Messi will be making his first MLS trip to the nation's capital. DC United taking on Inter Miami, 2 p.m. Eastern time, only here on the MLS Season Pass. Joining me now in studio, Chicago Fire and Houston Dynamo legend Calen Carr, who will be on the call this weekend. Chicago Fire taking on Montreal, and the armchair analyst himself, Matt Doyle. And bringing him back is Taylor Twellman, who's going to get us all set to talk a little bit about the New England Revolution.
Calen, how many MLS Cups do you have?
Here we go.
The same number as me and Jill.
And Taylor,
that's
too,
awesome.
right?
That's awesome.
I mean,
yeah. You only lost, what, 2 of them? Yeah, that's awesome.
That's fair. That's fair. Did you take issue with the legend comment, Taylor?
No, not at all. You're a
Okay.
legend in my mind.
Thank you, brother.
And your mom's mind.
You're all legends in my mind. Taylor Twellman, you got a chance to see the New England Revolution up close and personal this weekend in their 4-1 loss to Atlanta United. And the vibes have been tough in league play for New England, who's still in search of that first MLS win. Here's what manager Caleb Porter had to say. Yeah, none of us are happy with where we're at in the league at all. We're disappointed. There are moments in every one of those leagues games where we could point and say, we're right there. But the reality is, we're not doing a good enough job finishing our chances that we're getting, and we are giving up, for me, soft goals. Midfielder Ian Harkes adding, just stick with us. We obviously, like I said, look at ourselves first. We disappointed the fans today, especially with that performance. We can't go have a high on one night and then a low back down in the league. So like I said, stick with us. What he's alluding to there, too, is the fact that versus Atlanta United, it was 1-0 at the break, Taylor, but this is a team that still needs a win. They go home to Gillette Stadium. How important is it for the Revs to get a win this weekend?
Well, it's very important. I think that states the obvious. The hard part here, Joe, is the fact that if you ask Caleb Porter, they've played 6 games. They've won 3 of them. The problem is the 3 losses they've had have all been in league play. So now it feels like their backs are against the wall a little bit. Now, I think this is inside the weeds, but it's important for the viewers to understand this will be their first opponent that is on the same schedule. Atlanta played them with the 2 weeks off. Everyone else has had weeks off. Cincinnati plays in CONCACAF Champions Cup. So does the New England Revolution, right? So that's going to even itself out. But there's pressure in New England. Listen, against Atlanta, I don't think I'm stating that hot of a take. They were the better team in the first 45 minutes. They give up a penalty, worst time to give it up going into halftime, and then all of a sudden the floodgates open in the second half. But the issue is they don't have a 9. Veroni doesn't look the part. He hasn't for a while. And if you don't have a 9, you can key in Carlos Heel. You can key in on Chancalay. You can key on a lot of it. I like the 4-3-3 formation for them. I like everything about it. The problem is if you're not really a threat through the 9 position, it makes it easier to defend you. And I think that's going to be a big question mark for Caleb Porter. until they get to the summer.
My issue with the 4-3-3, Taylor, is that it takes Carlos Gil out of the engine room. It puts him out on the wing. And I know that the way teams play the 4-3-3 now, sometimes the wingers come inside and act more as a focal point number 10. But the Revs weren't able to do that at all in the second half against Atlanta. So it takes, I think, reps to get to that level. I think it's just easier. Play the 4-2-3-1, get a real winger out there, especially because, as you said, they're not getting goals from their 9. So they need a goal-scoring winger, someone out there who will stretch the field. Obviously, they hope when Dylan Barreiro comes back in a couple months, he can be that guy. I think he can be that guy. I think he's one of the most talented young players in this league, but how fast he integrates after tearing his ACL. The other big issue for the Revs, which has nothing to do with the formation, Henrik Ravis just hasn't been it. Over the past 4 years, 5 years, Matt Turner and then Georgi Petrovic, they had two of the best goalkeepers, the best shot stoppers in league history. And they have not gotten that level of play since they sold Petrovic to Chelsea last year for a league record fee for a goalkeeper. It has been a real climb. It has led to, as Caleb Porter said, soft goals, and it has led to an 0-3 start in this league. No wins, no draws, 3 losses. In the history of MLS, going back to 1996, only 3 teams have ever started with 0 points for the first 3 games and gone on to make the playoffs. So yeah, their backs are against the wall big time this coming weekend, because if you start with no points from your first 4 games, it feels like too tough a hole to dig out of, especially in the East.
A win and 2 draws for their opponent, FC Cincinnati, who's had an uncharacteristic offense as of late. Doyle shut out in 2 of their 3 games. What's not clicking yet for Cincinnati?
I mean, Brandon Vasquez to Corey Baird, that's a downgrade. Alvaro Barriel to Luca Oriano, that's a downgrade. Santi Arias, probably not as good an all-around player as DeAndre Yedlin at this point in his career, but he's better in the final third. So that's another downgrade for a team that plays a 3-5-2 with 2 attacking wingbacks. It's just across the board in the attack. And then you add on the fact that Aaron Bupenza, he's been injured a little bit and he hasn't exactly been a dominating force out there, even though he's gotten a bunch of goals. It's all falling onto Lucho. And Lucho, to me, looks like he's missing a little bit of the explosion, that ability to create instant separation on the ball that was the defining factor of his MVP campaign last year. The good news for Cincinnati is the defense is still elite. Roman Celentano is still one of the best young goalkeepers in the league. But just in this attack, it's tough to make that many replacements, that many guys who are marginally not quite as good and expect to perform at the same level.
I'm less concerned just because, as you mentioned, the back line looks the same, and the supporter shield for me is not a priority for this team anymore. They did it last year. Now it's about building towards the playoffs. And, when I think about the way this team was in the past year, they had 14 one-goal wins, and they found a way always, especially at home. And that's that cutting edge they're missing. Corey Baird is more of a streaky goal scorer. I'd say the same about Bupenza, hasn't found his foot yet. Lucho Acosta, and for me, that's kind of the last part that clicks in preseason. Early in the season is that final finishing ability. But the idea that this team is in big trouble, I just don't see it.
Big trouble, no, but concerning. I'm in the camp of concerning, and I'm going to tell you why Pat Noonan, Dominic Kinnear, and Kenny Arena are concerned. They're not going to tell you publicly, but that CONCACAF Champions Cup at home, Bupenza should have had 4 goals. That's a fact, not an opinion. And the problem is right now with Bupenza, last year, in and out of the lineup, in and out of the roster, off the field problems, now coming in with no Vasquez. So now everyone knows they went out and spent a ton of money on this guy to score goals. He can't be missing chances the way he's missing. Corey Baird's going to be mobile. He's going to be active. He's going to create space for Acosta and Bupenza to operate. If Bupenza is going to play in the manner that he is right now, then make no mistake about it, this summer they're going to have to make a move, and they will make a move, because it is concerning right now for Pat Noonan and that staff to see the opportunities they're getting. Because, Calen, you just hit the nail on the head. They won how many games by 1 goal? That 1 goal has to come from Bupenza. It has to come in the manner by which they're creating chances right now. If they're not, then we're going to be talking about a team that's just fighting and scrapping by to try to win games 1-0 off of Miles Robinson set pieces, and not off a guy they spent $8.5 million plus to bring in to score you 15, 20 goals.
Manager Pat Noonan called it in preseason. He said this team will go as far as Aaron Bupenda and Lucho Acosta will take us. One manager getting his first win at the helm is Chris Armas with the Colorado Rapids, a 2-1 win over Real Salt Lake. Calen, what went right for the Rapids?
The result. I mean, that's first and foremost for me.
Beyond in the result, what went correct?
Well, they could have folded easily. Connor Ronan, their most important player for me, gets injured in the first half. Then they concede a goal, and you're saying, oh no, here we go again. Because the first 2 match days were so disappointing, the gut punch on the road, and then losing the home opener. So the fact that they came and fought their way back into this match, I thought said a lot about, look, a new manager, you step in, a new team trying to bring a culture that was from the very bottom, the cellar last season. So the idea that they were able to get a goal from their number 9, Rafa Navajo, who gets off to the score sheet, that'll give him some confidence. And then Bassett finding the winner in the second half, that really gave them a foothold. And I think that's really where Colorado is at right now, is just trying to find a foothold in the season. I thought this result will go a long way against a rival to do that.
Colorado will try to keep that foothold against perennial power in the Western Conference, the Seattle Sounders and Brian Schmetzer. 1 goal on the season, Doyle. It's been struggle city in the few games that they've had offensively. That is tied for a league worst in MLS. That 1 goal was from Pedro de la Vega, who is out now until at least mid-April with the hamstring injury. If you're Brian Schmetzer, what is the best way to deal with playing without de la Vega?
It's tough because what we've seen early in the season is they've gone with 2 up top, Jordan Morris and Raul Ruiz-Diaz, both playing as strikers. And I understand why you want to do that because both those guys have a history of putting the ball in the back of the net in this league. But I think it's come at the expense of their ability to run the game through midfield. In years past, when it was Morris and Ruiz-Diaz, Jordan Morris was on the wing. And I don't think this man right here, Leo Chu, has been good enough to justify always keeping him in the starting lineup. I think at this point, you want to go back to Morris on the left wing, Christian Roldan on the right wing, and Raul Ruiz-Diaz up top, and then control that midfield, because that is what you sacrifice ultimately when you switch from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-4-2. You're playing with 1 fewer guy in central midfield, so you're going to be able to dictate the game a little bit less. You're going to probably give up a few more chances on the break, and that has been the story of the first few weeks for Seattle Sounders. And if they want to get back to the baseline they were at last year, I think you switch back to the 4-2-3-1. You have a huge amount of data that says it works with this group of players, and you just go from there. And then when De La Vega comes back in a month, you integrate him on that left wing to be the playmaking winger he was brought in to be in the first place.
And I think the numbers are a little misleading. Listen, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think Jordan Morris is your 9. I don't think he should be because of what his career is. But they've been missing Rusnak and João Paulo, guys. And so if those 2 are not in your lineup and not playing consistently, then guess what happens? Your facilitation of chance creation is going to go down. It's not going to be there. But if I've got Ruiz-Diaz on his last leg and Matt hits the nail on the head and I've got Paulo and Rusnak and they're healthy, I'm just going back to the well. I'm going to play Ruiz-Diaz as a 9 and Jordan Morris out wide and see what happens. But any team missing their 2 DPs, they're going to struggle. That's why I think some of those numbers are misleading. However, I do think there may be a conversation that all of us are having later on in the year if both Paulo and Rusnak come back and Jordan Morris is your certified 9 without De La Vega on the field, then I think it's going to be a little bit of an up and go, stop, start kind of thing because I just don't see 20 goals coming from Jordan Morris.
Let's talk about Sporting Kansas City taking on San Jose. Another team yet to win this season. 0 points through 3 games is the San Jose Earthquakes. The Carlos Vela rumors going to the Quakes seem all but dead. Doyle, what now for San Jose?
Yeah, I just want to point out that stat about the Revs being 0-3, no points for 3 games. That's the Quakes as well. They need playmaking. They need a lot of things in this team. Like the back line looks slow. Carlos Gruezo hasn't been as good as you would hope at defensive midfield. Daniel has been much worse last year. Maybe the most disappointing individual performer so far this season has been the Quakes goalkeeper. But part of that is when they get on the ball, they're not dangerous. And this is a team that finished, I think, 13th in expected assists last year. The year before that, Jeremy Abobasi had 17 goals. All of that has sort of gone up in smoke. And the easiest way to fix it for me, without changing too much else, go out and get that DP number 10. Carlos Vela was the name that was mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Very good chance creator still, but never as a number 10. They have to go out on the market, they have to open that checkbook, and they have to bring in a guy who can move the entire team around him.
At number 10, I hate to say it, is not going to fix this team. The problems are deeper than that, and that's the problem that I keep having with this San Jose team is what's the plan? Because I went out and I hear the rumors of going to get a 35-year-old Carlos Vela, like that's going to fix it. The profile of the signing they brought in with Pellegrino, who missed a sitter, by the way, 33 years old, are talking about a Band-Aid, winning now. And that's the question I have. As a former Bay Area, local resident, they have so much talent in that academy. I assumed that Lucci was going to coming from FC Dallas with the pedigree of, bringing forward these players like Pepe and others to mine this academy for talent. Now, Nikos Chakiris has been injured. I know they want to get him back into the team, but to consistently run out the same team without bringing forward new talent within the roster, it all looks like a quick fix. And that's where I ask, what's the overall plan here? Because they've gone out and tried to, get these big names here and there, or maybe a big number 10 you come in and think might just make it a little bit better.
But that is the plan, right? Like getting an elite number 10 and then building a team around them so that young players like Shakiris, who's probably more of an 8 than a 10, or Cruz Medina, who's probably more of an attacking left winger than a number 10, when you put them out there eventually, and San Jose does become Philadelphia Union West, right? When you put them out there, they have an alpha on the field that they can play off.
But when is eventually? These kids aren't even making the 18 right now. They're playing.
Well, you said Securis is hurt. You're gonna put him out there while he's hurt.
How about Diego Luna, who they gave to 50,000 in GAM to Real Salt Lake 2 years ago? How about Drake Callender, who was in the academy? Like, they've had talent throughout the years, but haven't made it proof. Even Cade Cowell, for me, he regressed under Lucci, and within this organization, they were able to move him on.
You know
why?
See if it sticks with because they didn't have an elite number 10 for him to play off.
I don't know if that was the issue.
Yeah.
He just was getting out in space and not being able to make that final product. So for me, there's big questions here. And for me, it comes back, play the kids. I would commit to that, but it's hard when you're 0-3, you've lost 2 at home, to commit to now, let's progress these young players forward. But again, it just seems like a quick fix is the easiest option. And the one I think.
Just one thought that's overarching for San Jose and about 8 other teams. If you add 2 legitimate DPs to that roster, are they better?
Very obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot better.
Right? And so I get Calen, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, absolutely. But playing the kids isn't going to get you over the hump if you don't have the DPs to deliver the results now to show you how to get there as
Taylor,
well.
What's more likely? San Jose goes out and spends on 2 big DPs, or they play their kids and they find a pathway forward, not this year maybe, but next year or 2 years down the road?
Are we trying to turn the corner now, or are we just saying 2024 and 2025 doesn't matter?
It's 0-3. I'm just looking at the table right now. I'm looking already ahead and saying, I don't know if Vela is solving it. I don't know if Pellegrino's solving it.
I didn't say Vela. Whoa. I didn't say Carlos Vela. Okay. I said 2 legitimate DPs. Okay. You throw Bupenza on that team. You throw Daniel Gazdag on that team. Are they better?
Absolutely. I just think there's a lot less chance of that happening.
Not necessarily, because if the ownership is now being put on pressure the way Philadelphia more than likely is going to be the way they went out against Pachuca, now all of a sudden you've got to follow the course of the league. Calen, I think San Jose, with this roster and the manager they have, you add 2 legitimate DPs, I just think they're a different team. I just think the owners that aren't doing it are going to be left behind very quickly, because now we've got 7, 8, 9 owners in this league that are spending the money in all the variety that you can. They're going to be left behind because they're operating in MLS 2014 and it's not 2024. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying the academy's not there. You're 100% correct. But the academy isn't going to get you where you need to go if you don't go out and spend money on real players right now. It's just not.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would say is Philadelphia have been able to stave off maybe not getting over that hump without getting, that top end number 9 or whoever it is that they're going to go spend.
Calen, they've spent the last 2 DPs is a franchise high for them. They've also had the best goalkeeper in the league for 6 years.
Right, but it's been the young players continually moving forward through McKenzie, through Aronson brothers, through now Quinn Sullivan and McGlynn, these young players that have helped this group.
Hold on, Calen, when was that? That wasn't when Jim first started. When Jim first started, they couldn't win games playing the kids.
That's true, but they committed to the vision, and now they've seen the results.
Because they went out and spent money and got guys that could play. Gazdag, Carranza, Andre Blake's in there. Those aren't academy kids.
Right. But I'm saying the base. Build a base, then you add the DPs. Instead of doing it reverse and going out and trying to spend cash and be splashy without that foundation underneath.
They haven't done that. They have the base right now. If you threw Bupenza and a legit 10 on this team, you're telling me San Jose isn't cooking with gas? Dude, I think they've got the foundation of the team right now. They just don't have the upper echelon to chance create. Espinoza is one of the best deliverers of the ball in this league, but he ain't getting the ball in the spots that he needs to. Go get him a legit 10.
I'm with it. I'm with that.
You're going long-term. Taylor's saying it can happen right now.
I think the answer is to get a number 10. The interesting thing to me is we're talking about this. Where does Sporting Kansas City fit into this discussion, right? Because we even went through it in the pre-show meeting talking about this team. It's almost like they're not interesting to talk about because they have the same manager, they have the same system, they have the same players from last year. And Peter Vermees has earned the trust, I think, from all of us to figure out what has gone wrong through these first 3 games and to get them playing like they were the final 2/3 of last year into the playoffs. And I think that's a good baseline for this team. It looks like a 50, maybe 55-point team if you keep it together. But we should be asking for more from them. They have that DP slot open because Gadi Kinda left after last season. Right now, Eric Tomey has been playing as the number 10. He's a pretty good player. He's not elite. Alan Pulido, 33 years old, not looking himself so far. Johnny Russell has maybe aged out a little bit. It's not as much fun to talk about Sporting Kansas City because things don't really change, but it feels like we might be coming to a point with this group where they do need to change. I'm going to give it another month and then really decide, but 3 games, not pretty so far for Sporting.
Sporting Kansas City.
Keep an eye on them this summer.
Yep.
Keep an eye on them this summer.
You could keep an eye on them this weekend on the MLS Season Pass. Sporting Kansas City taking on the San Jose Earthquakes, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Buying or selling, it is that time in the show to talk numbers. We're going to bring back in Sacha Kljestan. Matt Doyle will give us the number. He'll give us the stats. Calen, Sacha, you tell us, are you buying or are you selling? Doyle, let's start with the Chicago Fire. You got some Chicago chance creators, but spoiler alert, neither one of them has the name Shaqiri.
Yeah, it's not the number 10. The number is 2, and that's the number of Chicago Fire players in the top 10 league-wide in expected assists through 3 weeks. It's Brian Gutierrez on one wing and Marin Haile Selassie on the other wing. I am not buying these guys as top 10 chance creators on their own. I am buying them being very good players, though, especially if they got an elite number 10 between them. And I'm not even sure of this argument, but I'm going to put it out there for you guys to pick apart. The Fire attack with these 2 guys, with Kuipers up top, who's been not great, but I think will be good. If you put an elite number 10 in the middle of it, the Fire are back, baby. Like, they're that piece away.
Are the Fire back, baby, with an elite number 10? Calen,
I told you I wasn't sure of my own argument.
Oh, this is painful.
You let off the gas, Doyle. I could hear it. You're like,
as a former Fire player, and I'm going to be on their match this weekend, so it'd be interesting to see how it changes. Kuipers, for me, Sash, I got to know the Belgian league, what's going on. I haven't seen
you buying
the
or are
return
you selling,
as of yet.
Calen Carr?
They conceded, the number you chose is 2. They've conceded 2 goals after the 90th minute. That's the biggest concern for me, so I'm going to have to sell on this.
You know you got to go to Chicago this weekend, right?
I know.
This video comes out
I'm
before
selling
then.
also, Calen. Matt, you don't even believe they'd be a top half team in the East with that number 10. Gutierrez can be good. Haile Selassie, I don't think he ends up as a real big chance creator this season.
The Fire's opponent is Montreal. A surprise team so far this season. Doyle got a surprise contributor.
Yeah, the number is 2 again. That's where Huon, the right wing back, Huon ranks in the league in expected assists. They've been playing on the break through the first 3 games, which, like, no problems, no qualms about that when you start with 6 on the road, and it plays into Huon's skill set absolutely perfectly. He might be the fastest player in the league, like literally one of the fastest players I've ever seen. But I am not going to buy this as a season-long solution for Montreal. I think they will need to evolve their game model pretty significantly as the days go by, maybe even starting this weekend against the Fire.
Yeah, big time buy for me. Matt, I totally agree. I played with Juan in Orlando. You're right, one of the fastest players in the league. They're using him in the right way, but he is not a consistent player in the final third. They're going to have to change something up.
Yeah, I'm buying too, especially on Juan. And playing this style this time of the year. They're starting their first 6 matches on the road. I did this when I was playing for Chicago and Houston. You just get into a rhythm of going on the road, get results. Juan has been a big part, especially when they look on the counter.
Are you saying that if a team wants to have a new stadium, they should sign you? Because then you get that stadium part of the package.
Then you have all the home games on the back half too. So some home cooking towards the end of the year.
2 teams that in the past had flying offenses was Austin taking on the Philadelphia Union. It was a little bit different last year for Austin Doyle, and it's been a little bit the same to start the season this year with Austin. What is the deal with them this week?
Yeah, the number is 21.6. That's the percentage of their passes into the final third that are crosses for Austin FC. That's the 3rd highest number in the league, and this isn't just Driussi being out. Last year, they were at 22%, so actually higher last year. Dead last, 29th out of 29 teams. They're just out of ideas anytime they get on the front foot and use the ball in the attack. So I think they should do more of what we saw this past weekend against St. Louis, which is, I mean, it's the Montreal thing, right? Just give them the ball, draw a deep line of confrontation with veteran defenders like Matt Hedges and Julio Cascante back there. You know you're not going to give up a lot of soft goals coming from within the box. Just be a pure counterattacking team. Try to rack up some points, maybe figure stuff out, and then mid-season, change your game model if you need to.
I'm buying it, but just for this weekend, or this past weekend, because it worked. And it was, I don't care if it's a long throw or a set piece, whatever, they got 2 goals from those center backs. So no Driussi, that's the big piece that's missing right now. So for the time being, I think you have to go with what's working. They ended up getting the result at home.
I'm buying also. With the players on that roster right now, just be a counterattacking team.
Rough goings for the Philadelphia Union, a CONCACAF Champions Cup loss to Pachuca 6-0. Doyle, turn those Union fans' frowns upside down.
I don't know if this is going to entirely turn those frowns upside down, but the number is 56.6%. That's Philly's accuracy on long balls, which is 6th best in the league thus far, only in league play, bear in mind. Last year, they were 11th at 50.8%, so still very good, but nowhere near what they've done through these first 3 games. I think this speaks to the fact that they're actually a little bit more comfortable using the ball and playing out of the back. They're not just lumping the ball blind into the channel as often as they have in years past. And I think there are going to be some growing pains, right? They're going to be caught playing on the ball maybe a few times. But I think what we've learned from the Union over the past few years, if they want to get over the hump, they have to be able to use the ball more. It's not going to be enough to just play against the ball and to turn everything into transition moments. They need to be able to draw a team to one side of the field with possession and then lump a long ball to a fullback on the overlap or to maybe one of those shovelers, a Quinn Sullivan on one side or Jack McGlynn on the other, and create different avenues of attack.
I'm buying, Matt. I'm buying. I think it comes down to actually having Jack McGlynn on the field all the time now. Yeah. He's the type of player that gets on the ball and dictates some things for Philadelphia Union. He's not going to be happy just hitting long balls. So I think because McGlynn is such a talented player with the ball, it almost changes this Philly team a little bit.
I'm buying it, but for a different reason on the Union.
I was going to say, you gotta
when you come off
a little bit here.
When you come off a 6-0 loss against Pachuca, you don't want to be the next team to play them. So I would keep an eye on Philly this weekend. I think they're going to have a big
You want to see them use the ball more, though.
Yeah, I like the way it's a combination of the press, push them up the field, but then also use that quality a little bit more in advanced positions.
FC Dallas taking on Vancouver. Dallas 1 win, 2 losses to start the season. Doyle, we've seen a little bit of a new formation, some new pieces this season. What do you need to see from them this weekend?
46%. That is the number for Dallas. That's their dual success rate so far this year, which is 27th in the league through 3 games. Now, this is a little bit tough because they played at the Red Bulls, and of course, the Red Bulls win like 90% of their duels. So it's skewed by that a little bit. And I think a lot of it can also be explained by the absences of Mendy in central midfield, and Paxton Pomykal has barely played this year. So they're down to the second stringers there. And they're down to the second stringers across that back line where they have been thin from the get-go this year. It's hard to become the team you want to be when you're losing every 50-50. And every 50-50 is an overstatement, but when you're losing 54% of your 50-50s, and I think it's put Dallas's backs up against the wall really quick through this season, but I think it would be a mistake for Nico Estevez to change what he's tried to implement. You got to take your lumps now and figure it out, even with those backups on the field as the year goes along.
I'm selling this one because I spoke to Nico Estevez before this last match against Red Bull, and he said they were trying to find a system that fit when their players were missing. And they didn't have Pamukal, they didn't have Iramendi, and it didn't work. So I think they might have to change it, going from the 4 to going back to a 4-back solution in the back, because trying to go with 3 without the 3 center back pieces that they can use. Ibiaga is out right now. It's not working without his pieces. So at some point, you have to get points while you can, be flexible. I think they should go back to their original 4-back system.
I'm buying what Matt's selling. You've got to win your duels in any game that you play, and that gives you the time to get on the ball. You have to win 50-50s. That's plain and simple.
It's that Red Bull mentality right there. Brian White for the Vancouver Whitecaps led the team last year, 15 regular season goals. It's a small sample size, but White with no goals through 2 games. Doyle.
Yeah, you could argue last year that Brian White was the best non-DP in the league. He was awesome for them. Our number this year is 8. That's the number of touches Brian White has in the box through 2 games, which is 61st in the league. Last year he was 5th. So part of this is things not clicking with Vancouver. Part of it is they have changed up their formation a little bit with Brian White playing on the right side of a front 3 in what really is a 3-4-3. And I understand Vanni Sartini compulsively changes his team's shape about twice a year, once at the start of the year and once usually after the summer window. And last year it worked really well, but using White on the wing as an off-ball sort of target winger doesn't make any sense to me. You take him away from what his strength is, which is being the focal point of the attack, occupying defenders and being in the box. And you also, the knock-on effect to me is you separate White and Ryan Gauld. And that was the strength of the Vancouver Whitecaps last year. Those 2 guys, once they went to a 3-4-1-2, those 2 playing up top, they made that team so good. And oh, by the way, you're also dropping Pedro Vite deeper in central midfield into a double pivot with Andres Cubas. It doesn't make any sense. And what we've seen through 2 games, and I know they got a 2-0 win, but that was kind of a smash and grab. Like what we've seen through 2 games is not convincing me that this is going to work with Damir Kreilach as a false 9 splitting Brian White and Ryan Gauld.
Matt, I really like what you're putting out there today. This is an easy buy.
Bye, baby. Woo!
Brian White, 15 goals last season in the box, a typical number 9 striker. Why change Vancouver when you had a good season last year? You have to play to his strengths and Ryan Gauld's strengths.
I'll buy this too.
Get back to it.
I'll buy this too, but I do also want to buy Ali Ahmed, who for me had the best goal of the weekend. That was ridiculous.
He's been awesome. Yeah. He's been awesome. And
breakout season last year.
Playing him as an inverted left fullback because he's right-footed, and if he wins the ball, he'll go direct to goal. That would help, but it will also add another guy in central midfield for them because when they're out of possession, he comes in and acts as a ball winner. So I think that could be a solution to sort of playing a false double pivot, which Vanni Sartini is the master tinkerer in this league. He's probably got a false double pivot somewhere in the bag coming.
He's also a master. Do you guys know who Frida is?
Of course. What?
Sasha, do you know who Frida is?
No.
Doyle, tell him.
Are you talking about Frida Kahlo?
No.
What are you talking about?
Frida, Vanni Sartini's cat.
Oh.
Do you follow her on Instagram?
No. I should be following the cat.
Yes, best manager pet account on the internet. I'm just saying.
He's
got a double pivot.
Here,
he's got a Bengal cat. I'm just saying, don't count out anything Vanni Sartini's gonna do. Finally, our matchup, a little soccer in the Southeast. Nashville taking on Charlotte. Top player on your team says in the preseason that you have to change a little bit the way that you play. That's what Hani Mukhtar said in preseason. Has Nashville SC done it?
They have not. The number we're going with is 31.6%. That's their field tilt. Field tilt is the share of final third passes that you as a team hit in the game. So they're essentially giving their opponents 2 passes in the final third for every 1 they hit. Now, part of that is baked into their game model, right? We know that Nashville, as long as Gary Smith is going to be there, is going to be a sit deep and try to hit into space. They trade possession and they trade position on the field for space to counterattack into. But to bring it back to what you were saying, Jill, Hani Mukhtar in the offseason last year and this year and the year before that, and probably next year as well, has said, if we want to advance as a club, we need to be more comfortable and more able to use the ball in possession. It doesn't have to be our go-to, but it has to be something we're comfortable doing. And I think what we saw last year in the Leagues Cup was that this team was comfortable doing that. But a lot of that came from Walker Zimmerman building from the back, and a lot of it came from Dax McCarty having a fantastic stretch of games. And with Walker Zimmerman kind of carrying a knock this year, and without Dax McCarty, they are having less of the ball than ever. They are creating less danger than ever, and they are more one-dimensional than ever. And it has been frustrating for fans to watch so far this season.
Yeah, I'm selling that this is going to change or happen. No Walker Zimmerman, as you mentioned, that changes things. Hani Mukhtar has not been up to full fitness yet. Same with Serge. So I think once those pieces come back, that tilt back, as you mentioned, actually creates more space and behind through the system for Hani Mukhtar to be able to run in space in transition. Same with Schaffelberg and those pieces. So I think they can actually make this work, as we've seen them done in the past. I know you'd like an evolution. I just don't see it happening.
I'm selling too, Matt. Just accept Nashville for what they are. They aren't changing. Also, Hani Mukhtar, accept Nashville for what it is. You scored 50 goals over like 2 seasons. Why do you want to change? Just keeps putting the ball in the back of the net. This is who they are. They're a counterattacking team.
Hani wants more. He wants more for Nashville SC.
Does Hani have a cat?
That I don't know.
Named after a socialist painter of the 1930s? We'll have
Your
to check on
guess is as good as
Instagram.
mine. Your guess is as good as mine. Follow Free to the Cat on Instagram. All right, positive start for Charlotte FC, but Doyle, a little bit of room for improvement.
Yeah, a little bit of room for improvement, specifically on the wings. 25% is Charlotte's team-wide success rate in 1v1s. That's dead last in MLS so far in this very young season. They have a new DP winger coming in, Lyle Labata. He's known more as a box finisher and a guy who sort of finishes off plays with the final pass than a 1v1 wizard, so he probably won't change this all by himself, but they do need someone who can do that. Part of the way they play is to get these guys into the open field, and when you're in the open field in isolation, the best players in the league have the ability to beat that last man and turn it into something. Charlotte are playing good ball through a few weeks, but they lack that little bit of top end, and they need to fix that if they're going to end up being a top 5 team in the East.
You buying, Sacha?
Buy. And also, hey, Zoran Kerneta and Dean Smith, buy another winger. They need
Money
these
bags
guys,
over here.
like Matt said, when they get into the final third, you have to have guys that can beat players and then make good decisions. Oh, and Enzo Capetti, you better start finishing your chances.
I'm going to buy as well, but this time I'm going to say, yeah, sure, go out to the open market, but the most likely one-on-one merchant that I see is actually the 16-year-old. Nimfasha Berchimas, for me, has come off the bench in the last 3 matches. Dean Smith,
Play your
are you
kids.
picking a trend here?
Play your kids. I love it,
I spoke
Calen.
to my old teammate Gonzalo Segarras, who coached him at the U17 World Cup. He scored 3 goals at the World Cup, was the breakout star for the U.S. men's national team there. And he said he's been watching him, coming through MLS Next Pro, and then he stepped up, was playing 2 years with players 2 years older at the last U17 World Cup. And in these matches, I've been seeing him, it hasn't quite come off yet, but he's shown flashes, that fearlessness to try one-on-one ability. So I understand maybe they'll go out and buy, as Sacha says, out into the market, but I'm buying on Berchimas, a 16-year-old, getting minutes in MLS and a little bit of that kind of like different pace that he brings to the team, a little bit of a question mark.
Doyle is beating.
You know how you can tell Berchimas is a serious prospect. 15 years old, he shaved his head. That is all business right there.
We've talked way more about shaving your head and cats on the show than I was anticipating in our Matchday 5 preview show. One thing I know we would all buy is this moment from Enzo Capetti this weekend against Toronto FC. Adorable.
I love it, especially because he's South American. He's probably not used to the cold, but he's sacrificing for the entire team right there.
These Toronto kids are tough, man. I'll tell you what, I would have folded under this type of conditions.
Man,
Played in Chicago.
But I was not in the off season. I was back in California.
Calen's keeping that jacket. The 3rd season of MLS Next Pro kicks off this week. Defending MLS Next Pro Cup champions Austin FC 2 will kick off the season Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern against the Tacoma Defiance on the MLS Season Pass. Over the first 2 seasons of MLS Next Pro, 90 players have signed first-team MLS contracts and 400 have received short-term call-ups to MLS first teams. Before we say goodbye, let's bring back the guys that helped us kick off the show, and let's make it a little spicy. 21 days ago, Major League Soccer began its 2024 season. Which club has been the biggest surprise, Sacha?
It's got to be Minnesota United. I'm thinking about interim head coach Cameron Knowles, how he was thrust into the spotlight only 7 weeks before the season started. So did this guy even have a plan for preseason? Did he have any idea how he wanted the team to play? Did he throw it all together late? And not only that, they've taken 7 points from 3 games without Emmanuel Reynoso, who's arguably the most talented player in Major League Soccer, not named Lionel Messi. It's unbelievable what he's done. Just a microcosm of his team is this: the game-winning goal in Orlando. It's a flick-on header from Adebayo Smith to Oluwaseyi, who sets up Longwane. All 3 subs stepping on the pitch to connect for a game winner. Minnesota United has been amazing.
You said it, Sash. The most important guy on that team is Emmanuel Reynoso, who there was off-the-field problems last year, staying in Argentina, not reporting to the team on time. What is going to be the key for new manager Eric Ramsey and managing Reynoso?
Well, I think it's getting the buy-in from him right away, having those meetings with each other, getting to know each other, making him feel loved, making him know that he's still the most important player on the team, and then also finding a way to get the guys around him to do all that dirty work to just get the ball to Reynoso in places for him to be successful, because he's a magician with the ball. When he can get it onto his left foot, he can finish goals from long distance, but also set up plays in the final third.
Hang on a minute, Bradley and Sacha. Why does Eric Ramsey need buy-in from Reynoso? Aren't they in first place without him? Quite honestly, the players can look at him and say, hey, no, hang on a minute. You want to fit in with what we're doing right now? Go ahead. That's the best way to get a star player that's either up and down to buy in. I think Aaron Ramsey has to do absolutely nothing with Reynoso, because the players in that locker room, Sacha, Bradley, you've been in those locker rooms with big personalities where they may not need a buy-in. If the collective is already bought in, he's going to feel out. He's no longer the leader. He's now just going to have to be the best player. I think it's the best scenario for Minnesota United. If they lost their first 3 games, they've got to buy him in. He has to show up now and play, because the players around him would say, you want to join us? Come on.
How'd that work out with the superstars in Toronto last season, Taylor?
I was going to say that ain't going to work.
Were they in
It's
first
going to go
place?
how Reynoso
Were they
wants
in first place in the Eastern Conference 3 games in?
No, but this is 3 games, Taylor. You have to have your best players on the field. You know that.
Yeah.
And you know these superstars have to be coddled sometimes.
I don't know with how Cameron Knowles has run that, if Emmanuel Reynoso will now have Timu Pukki on his side the way he was last year. That's all I'm saying. All it takes is 1 or 2 guys to look right at Reynoso in any of the baby games that he has traditionally had off the field. I don't think it works. Now, for what it's worth, we're discussing the hypothetical. Last year, there was nothing from Reynoso when he got back to Minnesota. There was nothing. So we're speaking of something hypothetical, but I think it's in their best interest that they're sitting in first place right now. If they lost their first 3 games, Sacha, you hit the nail on the head. They're now in first place, 7 points. I don't even know if it's a conversation.
Well, this is why they're not a surprise to me, because I've seen them go through adversity last season and still do well, get themselves into playoff positions and so on. The biggest surprise is obviously the biggest surprise for me is obviously Toronto. This is the worst team in the league last year. They now start the season, no goals conceded. They get buy-ins from 2 of the big stars that we thought didn't like each other. We thought couldn't be managed. I'm seeing Bernardeschi running back defending. Insigne is playing out of his skin. This is the biggest surprise for me. Now you imagine if they get a 9. We're cooking. If they get a 9, playoffs, be careful. I'm not sure what you guys think on that, but for me, it has to be these guys, Toronto.
I think they need that 9, Bradley, because they've only scored 2 goals this season, and they're both absolute wonder goals from Lorenzo Insigne. That is not feasible over the long term. Somebody else has to step up to make plays in the final third. Yes, they have improved a ton. No doubt John Herdman has done a fantastic job of getting the buy-in from Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernardeschi, but you need somebody else to step up in creating chances and finishing off plays. But they have a foundation that is there that is very good so far.
It's a really interesting point. Those are 2 world-class goals, guys. In all seriousness, it's not as if they're creating 9, 10 chances in the first 3 games. You needed a def chip, and then you needed a golazo. And you guys said it best last conversation about Reynoso and about Toronto. In the blink of an eye, Insigne Bernardeschi can light the dumpster on fire, and this thing's over. This thing's gone, and then John Herdman's going to struggle with it. But that celebration said a lot to me. That celebration I saw the players around Insigne celebrating Insigne. This is the same 2 Italian players that have problems off the field. Fights with Toronto fans. Bernardeschi having problem with Toronto law. Not showing up on games, not showing up on time, not showing up for team meetings. This has been a complete dumpster fire since those 2 showed up, but not in the first 3 games. I'm just curious how long it lasts, because I'm not totally convinced, as Sacha just rightfully said, if they don't get 2 worldly goals, yeah, okay, they've got 3 points, 3 clean sheets, but they're not sitting here with 7 points. I think the jury's still out on this.
A honeymoon phase, perhaps, Bradley, between Insigne there and Herdman. What was your reaction when you saw the hug? You had something to say in our production meeting.
Yeah, I don't care what you do. You don't be running up to coaches. That's some Sacha Kljestan behavior, man. You don't run up to coaches and hug them. This is
Brad, I never hugged the coach. I never hugged the coach in my career.
Hold on, wait, hold on. Before you go after Sacha, I think we have something from our research department. Just a second, please.
Oh! No, but that's not a celebration. That's the end of the game. That's the end of the game.
Oh, another one.
He's hugging me. Look where my arms are. Look where my arms are. I'm not hugging him. He's hugging me. And that's not after a goal.
No, hey, Bradley, that's weak. That's weak.
No,
that was post-game.
You will never see
that was
me
a
score.
substitution. Bradley, that's weak. That is so wrong by production.
And run to a coach. Go through the archives. Go through the tapes back when it was filmed on VHS.
This is Brad.
You wouldn't see me doing
This is Brad and his daddy Jesse just staring into each other's eyes.
Liar. That's your dad.
Brad, I told you when you stay home with this work from home pass, I don't got your back. I got your back when you're here at work with me in the studio. And by research department, by the way, I mean Matt Doyle. Taylor, who you got?
For me, it's got to be the Portland Timbers. And I'm torn because I think Bradley and Sacha, rightfully so, picked the other 2 teams that naturally were in the conversation. But I came into this season listening to Phil Neville talk about his team, listening to Ned Gravelboy flip-flop, whether or not they had 2 DPs, 1 DP, whatever it may be. Whole point of what I'm trying to say is they didn't even know what their best roster was. They didn't know their best 11. They still don't even have a 9. That's coming to fruition here any moment. But the point being, to have 7 points in the manner that they have it, I think Phil Neville would have signed that dotted line immediately. But also to get Evander the game-winning goal the way he got it at Yankee Stadium, for any special player, that's the highest paid transfer fee ever in Portland history. For him to have a little bit of pressure to deliver in that moment, get them 3 points on the road where they were down 1 goal. I think if you asked Phil Neville before the season started, I'm going to give you 7 points in the manner by which they got them in the first 3 games, he wouldn't even thought about it. He would have signed the dotted line. I think they've outkicked their coverage a little bit. And if they get the 9 right, I think this team could have something to say in the Western Conference. I just think there's a better discussion there whether or not the 9 they're signed is technically a 9 and not a second forward or left winger.
That's the only criticism I would have. My bad, Sash. The only criticism I'll have is who they played. They played Colorado. They were terrible. When they did get a test in DC, they got battered. I don't know how they end up tying that game. They obviously go 2 goals up, but they got battered in that game. And then when they play New York City as well, they have no threats. New York City are not playing well. They haven't started the season well. That's my only issue I have with Portland. But well done. They're top of the league. They deserve all the credit. But I'm not sure how this carries on. I'm not sure how long.
Hold on, Bradley, because Toronto beat a bunch of world beaters?
No, but I'm seeing I can see a style of play from Toronto. I see they are hard to beat. You don't create much chances against them. There's a real team effort with Toronto. With Portland, it just seems like, again, like Evander, Weldy, great goal, but there's no rhyme or reason.
No, but Anthony's got 3 goals. That's the top of the Golden Boot race. You throw a 9 next to him, you know better than anyone. Now all of a sudden that can turn in 10 to 12 goals. I'm not arguing they haven't really played anyone, but I don't think I really saw this from them, and now they're adding that piece. Sacha, I may be wrong, but I think Portland may have something to say in the Western Conference when it's all said and done.
I agree with both of you guys. I think, yes, Bradley, they played against some lesser opponents, but you have to win those games and you have to take those points. And then with what Taylor's saying, they have quality in this roster, and I don't think we've seen the best of what they are yet, but we have seen some individual moments of brilliance. Evander comes into this game, finally gets in the field. We needed something from him. He picks up a goal and an assist. Moreno, we like this player. He can play between the lines. And if they add Cabecita Rodriguez up front, who can actually get in there and just score some goals, Eric Williamson in the midfield, Anthony is stepping up in his second year. We have some quality pieces in this Portland Timbers roster.
You could also argue Maxime Crepeau may be, when it's all said and done, the best free agent signing of 2024.
No, that's good. That's a great point. Maxime Crepeau is very good. I got to add one more team in here because I didn't really see this coming because I'm not around the club like Bradley Wright-Phillips is, but the New York Red Bulls, they have shown up and they have shown me something. I like that the 4-2-3-1 was back this weekend, which puts Emil Forsberg at the center of attention for this team. He's their best player and perhaps could be one of the best players in all of Major League Soccer. Sandro Schwartz wanted to see the team play in transition a little bit more, and this goal right here is an exact moment that he wanted to see. It's class from Forsberg, the timing, the weight of the pass to Lewis Morgan, the way that Morgan has stepped up now in the last 2 games as well. He almost feels like a new signing for the New York Red Bulls because he missed all of last year, basically. I love what they're doing with New York Red Bulls right now.
And that was Red Bull's biggest problem. Well, not the biggest. They had a few. But you said it, Sash. They went to a 4-2-3-1. Down the years, Taylor, we said it, you just said it about St. Louis. What's the plan B? Red Bull have never had a plan B. It's always been just go here, one formation, press. If that doesn't work, they lose. Or you're in a game where you're not controlling it. This season, you've seen them do 2 different formations and been successful. The signings, like you said, Lewis Morgan is not getting enough credit at the moment, but what a comeback, what an impact he's had. They're looking good for a real good season.
I agree. And I'm glad you guys brought up Morgan because naturally he fits this system, the way they go about it, no matter what formation it is, he suits it. He's very direct. He's very good in 1v1 moments, but they've got a nuanced number 10 in Forsberg. And in order to have that within the Red Bull way, listen, you guys agree with me. We've all said it. If they get a real good 9, this team has a real opportunity to do something. But Forsberg can make up for that in multiple ways. And I'm glad, Sasha, if you can change the formation and it's all about Forsberg, I think we're going to be talking about the Red Bulls for the entire year. But I still think they've got to find a way to go get a 9.
We'll cap that one there. Let's put our technical director hats on and pretend, well, maybe some of you guys are millionaires. Let's pretend we're billionaires. You're building your team around one current MLS player. Who is it, Sasha?
Oh, you put me on the spot first. I got to go with my favorite player in Major League Soccer. That's Thiago Almada of Atlanta. If I'm building a team, I want one of the best young number 10s. I would lock him up to like a 7-year contract. I'd give him all the money in the world that he wants to be playing in Atlanta and build the team around him. He can set up goals. He can finish goals. He can dribble past players. And he's already a World Cup winner. Thiago Almada is my guy.
No argument for me, Bradley.
Yeah, it was. I was trying to troll. I was trying to argue, but there's nothing I can say.
You got no argument for a 22-year-old World Cup winner, Bradley. Who you got?
No, because what I'm going to say, they're going to have arguments. So let's be ready to stay here. I would build my team around Darlington Nagbe.
Oh, jeez.
And I know you're going to talk about the age. I know this is what you're going to say. Yeah, he's old. He's getting on. I don't care. He's got 4 rings. He just won one last season. There's proof that this actually works. There's proof. We don't know if Almada works. I've seen this 4 times. If you want to play in a team, which I would want to be passing out the back, who can control the tempo of a game, who has experience in winning, it's only one man. It's Darlington Nagbe.
Sasha, I'm proud of your friend Bradley Wright-Phillips because there was a nuance to his answer that traditionally you and I aren't used to, right? Naturally, I would thought he would have said Giacomakis, and that's what I want. No. He scores goals and that's it. Like, at least there was something there. But I feel like when Bradley played in Columbus for maybe 10 seconds, there may be a connection here with he and Darlington that you and I don't know about.
I was blown away. I was blown away by Darlington. It's a brilliant player, and then the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah,
you can't be that. You win too much.
They shared their razors, and they are. Will you shave my head, and I'll shave yours?
We're the same hairdresser. Yeah.
You two are idiots, by the way. Like complete idiots. The question was.
I want to hear this.
No, hold on. The question is what?
Who would you build your
What's
team
the
around?
question?
Who would you build your team around?
Number
Are
one
you two
pick.
idiots? What have I been doing for the last 16 months?
Saying
I get
the
him
word.
cappuccinos in the morning. I go grocery shopping for him. I drive him to training. It's Lionel Messi. Like, what are we really talking about right now? It didn't say for 5 years, 6 years, 7
boring.
years. Right now, this team, you're not taking Lionel Messi. Are you two, like, what's wrong with you
It's
two?
boring. It's boring. We left it for you. We saw the production sheet. We left it for you. You left
Sure
it
you
the
did.
easy one.
You know what's funny? I came in last. And I saw those two answers. I'm like, these idiots.
All
We're
right,
making
well,
it exciting.
we'll leave it there. You're all geniuses in my book. That Taylor, don't shave those locks. Okay?
Sasha, just like this, right? And no, you shave my head, I'll shave yours at the same time, Darlington.
That would be a crime, getting rid of that head of hair, Taylor Twellman. That does it for this week, and this is MLS for Taylor Twellman, Sacha Kljestan, Bradley Wright-Phillips, Matt Doyle, and Calen Carr. I'm Jillian Sakovits. We'll see you guys next week.